Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, fam. Thanks for joining me again. Your girl, Unique Air, your metaphysical death doula, talking, speaking, reading on principles that will help you in this life and beyond. Life after life after life. Because we all know that there is no death. Death is an illusion. You simply pass out right into another dimension. So, sorry about that. I start this particular broadcast with a heavy heart because, whoo, yeah, since last night, I've been listening to this young lady who was one of Diddy's victims, and as well as a lot of other people. And she is doing a lawsuit. Well, she filed a lawsuit against these particular rappers and stars and things like that raped her and really habitually abused her. And she was talking about um, being a mind control victim in MK Ultra and how real it is. I know how real it is. I have books on it. I've been aware of this for a long time, and I've never once questioned the validity of what the victims say, because why would somebody want to come out and tell stories that make them look bad or make them look like a victim, or it just doesn't make sense. So the young lady was talking about how people are asking for proof, and she's like, how can I give you proof of what has happened to me? I can drop names, blah blah blah, all the things that she could do. But the point I'm making here is she was speaking about how she has over 200 different personalities, for lack of better words, 200 different alters that at different ages, that she was cracked and split apart. This psychological talk. And it made me think about her mental body, because on this channel here, I talk about the astral realm, the etheric body, the mental body, and all of that, and just how many lower astral entities are attracted to this young lady. She's only 30. She's been in the child care services since she was a baby. She's actually African American, and her mom, that's had her since she was 18, is Caucasian. And the energy between these two is beautiful. And it just adds to the testament that the time that we're in now, it's not about race, it's not about color, it's about energy. And so this matrix as it stands would have us all divided on artificial things that doesn't even make sense. These bodies are nothing but vehicles. The soul inside is what's real, right? This is like we're in the third dimension. But when she started to talk about the splitting of her personalities and things like that, and how each one can bring up memories and the other one may not even remember because that wasn't the altar that was there at the time, and talking about how people can pass lie detector tests, that they're not viable because depending on the altar that was there or was not there, deniability, plausible deniability, is really a thing, even though it's the same person but multiple beings speaking through that person, which led me to want to read to you all today about earthbound spirits. Yesterday, in the reading that I did about the physical body and the effect that it has on the astral body, as well as the mental and the emotional body, the effect that it has on the astral body. I was just reading that, and it's something how spirit will lead you to watch certain things, and just things pop up on your timeline that you need to see that will give validity to what you're already dealing with. So, on that note, I wanted to go into earthbound souls. Now, when we talk on earthbound souls, we're talking about artificial elementals. Okay, we're not talking about the thought form elementals that you put a lot of feeling into it, and then astral matter, the corresponding astral matter, gathers around that thought and actually becomes a thing, like a parasite, and it'll mess with you. Okay, I'm gonna watch my language on here. I'm not gonna keep using that foul language because that's not cool. But it'll mess with you and can literally drive you crazy. On that note, let me shout out, for your information, you need to check out 3 movies: Smile 1, Smile 2, and there's No One Can Save You. That came out in June of this year. No One Can Save You. Please check those movies out. All right, Spirit, I said it. Okay, so earthbound souls, we're going to go into these artificial elementals, which are just people who have passed and they did not do the work, my beloved. They didn't do the work while they were here to develop their mental, to develop their spiritual, to develop their emotional bodies. They just lived this life and it's just like they failed, you know? So now, you know, they're on the earth plane after, because like when you pass, you slip out of your body. And I'm gonna read this book to y'all. I ain't gonna go into it, but I'm gonna go into the title and all that because it's all still dealing with the astral. So I'm gonna read this to you about earthbound spirits and how they become stuck. They can't ascend. They can't rise up because what people don't understand is that when you leave this body, the way that you think and the way that you are at the moment that you leave the body, you that same person. You that same, have those same thought processes. You just don't have a third dimensional vehicle to carry out your vices in. Okay? So let's go into this. It's called Earthbound Souls. In the works upon the subject of the astral plane, particularly if the work be one of old authorities, there will be found many references to what are called earthbound souls. As a rule, these references are to the lower order of souls, which refuse to lift their mental gaze beyond the things and scenes of earth, and which haunt their old scenes of activity and life, finding therein the only pleasure that is possible to them in their degraded condition. But in this consideration, we must not neglect a mention of a higher order of souls who, unfortunately, are slow to break their earthly bonds and who cling closely to those who have been left behind them. Let us consider this class for a moment. It sometimes happens that a soul who is naturally fitted for the normal life on the higher astral planes is so tied and attached to matters concerning earth life that after its awakening from the soul's slumber, it at first refuses to participate in the normal astral existence, but instead busies itself with the affairs of earth life, which it should have left behind it. This unfortunate condition arises generally from some sense of unperformed duty, remorse, or anxiety about the welfare of some loved one left behind. In such cases, it actually hovers in space around the presence of the person or place in which it is interested in. And under extraordinary psychic conditions, it may actually make itself visible to the senses of persons in the flesh. Okay, so this is a person that has passed on, and there are things that are binding this particular person to the earth. They might have some remorse. They might be concerned about a loved one that's left behind, and so they hover around. They don't move on. They don't even want to participate in astral life because they want to be here. To this class belong the poor afflicted souls which wander about, haunting the scene of their earthly misdeeds, their remorse causing them to make vain endeavors to undo or atone for their misdeeds while in the body. Of course, these unfortunate souls aren't fully wide awake on the astral plane, neither are they wide awake on the earth life plane. Instead, they act like somnambulists, sleepwalkers on either plane, failing to partake of the normal life of either phase of existence. So some people in the physical plane have somnambulism. That's when they get up and they walking around, they sleepwalking, they'll eat, get something out the refrigerator and all that. So a person who passes out of the body, aka death, they're neither, when they're stuck to the earthbound, when they're stuck to the earth plane, which is the seventh level of the astral plane, the coarsest level, when they're stuck here, it's like they're sleepwalking because they can't participate in the earth in the third dimension. They don't have a body. They're not fully participating on the astral plane because they too connected with the earth plane. So they like straddling the fence like a sleepwalker. Okay, says here, akin to these are those worried and tormented souls who feel that they have left some duty or task unfulfilled, and who, in a somnambulistic condition, hover around their former scenes of life, endeavoring dreamily to set matters right. But it's too late now. Once you pass, you can't hover around. I mean, you can do that, but they're just prolonging and tormenting themselves. A third class is composed of a few who are so attached personally to souls left behind in the flesh that they brood over the loved persons, impotently striving to aid and guide them. That needs no explanation. So you got a third class of people who are so attached to the people that they left behind that they brood over them. They crying. They like, man, I want to come back. I didn't do you right. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I wasn't, true story. When my father passed, I was a young lady. I was 19. I just had my first son, and he got ill, and he wasn't really active in my life growing up. And once I had my son, I brought him to my dad. My father never even got to hold his grandson because he got sick. He fell ill. He was diagnosed with cancer, lupus, and diabetes. 6 months later, he was out of there, and he was only 36 years old. So after my father passed, he came to me 30 days straight in the astral plane telling me to let him go because I was crying for him. And, I hate that we didn't have that relationship that we should have had. And he felt bad about it too. But he told me in a dream, let me go. I'm gone now. I'm not going to make it. Let me go, baby. And the 30th day when I let him go, it's crazy because I had the same symptoms that my father had. I was holding him in my auric field. And I know it sounds crazy. And that's why he was saying, let me go. So when I was holding him in my auric field, I started taking on all the symptoms that he had. The 30th day when I let him go, all the symptoms went away. So this thing is real. It affects your mental. It affects all of you. Okay. Says here, in all of these cases, there is but one duty for those in the flesh to perform, and that duty is plainly marked. This duty consists in mentally advising the poor souls that their proper scene of activity is on the astral plane. Let them know. This is for clairvoyance and people who can see. You need to go into the light or whatever there is you need to go into, but this is not where you need to be hanging around at, right? That their duty demands that they cease brooding and hovering over earth's scenes and that they yield themselves to the upward attraction, rise to their proper plane of astral existence and enjoy the blessings thereof. Those who are conscious of the presence of disembodied souls of this type shouldn't shrink from this duty, no matter how much it may pain them to instruct the disembodied soul in this way. Don't shrink from that. If you have a gift of seeing the dead, Sixth Sense, okay, the movie with Bruce Willis, if you have a gift of seeing them, let them know. You need to don't hang around here. You need to move on. You can't get your body back. You got to move on. It is like talking to a young child in the majority of cases. In parentheses, owing to the semi-sleep condition of the earthbound soul of this type, right? It's like talking to a child. Although the soul may grieve and weep like the child, it should be bidden to do its duty and to go to its spiritual abode. This advice will often be heeded by the earthbound soul, and it will yield to the upward attraction and cease its troubled existence. However, in time, even without such advice, the attraction of the higher spheres will prevail and the soul will rise to its rightful place on the astral plane. And I say the rightful place because remember, y'all, if you've been following my readings, there are 7 levels on the astral plane. Each level has several sub levels, right? So if you're on the 7th level when you leave your body, that means you didn't really put in any work. You just lived a purely physical life. You didn't care about spirituality, right? So when we're telling a spirit being that dies to go to its plane, it could be right there, right here where we are on the 7th for the astral plane, on the 3rd dimension for us, right? Or it could be move on up to the 6th level or the 5th level, wherever you're supposed to be. They know on the other side where you're supposed to be. Source knows. But if you're brooding here after you get out your body, I'm telling you now, for those who are in the 3rd dimension now, when you pass, don't brood. Make it right before you leave. Disconnect from karma. Disconnect from desire. Desire is even longing to be around your loved ones, longing to make things right and fix it. That's desire too. You got to make it right before you go. If you can't make it right, disconnect. Thereby, when you pass over, you'll just slip right on out and go into the next life. We caution everyone against encouraging the earthbound soul to remain. It is like encouraging the unborn child to remain in the womb or the unfolding butterfly to remain in the chrysalis stage. No good comes from encouraging a violation of nature's laws on any plane of existence, including the astral. The lower class of earthbound souls belong to an entirely different category from those just mentioned. Now we get into the lower ones, right? These are ones that I just read about that just passed away, and I read somewhere, and I don't know if I'm gonna come across this, but I'll find it, that you get 30 days after you slip out of your body. You get 30 days. Damn, I just answered my own question. My father came to me 30 days straight. Okay, you get 30 days to visit your loved ones, see everybody, do what you need to do, and then get on. You ain't supposed to stay beyond that. All right. And when my stepson passed, he came to me for, I would say, within the span of a month. When he first died, he came to me on the astral plane with his hoodie on. And, we had a beautiful house back then, back in 2008. And he was sitting on the countertop saying, "Damn, I can't believe I don't have a body. I can't believe I ain't living no more." I was getting something out the refrigerator. I said, "You know what?" He said, "You used to talk about this when you used to try to take us to church and talk about spiritual stuff." I said, "I did." I said, "But you know what? You're more alive than we are here in this third dimension. You ain't got to work no more. You ain't got to do none of that." I said, "It's okay." I said, "It's okay to move on. And that's almost bringing me to tears to talk about it. But my stepson came to me so many times. He even came to me and told me how he was at his funeral, and for me to let his dad know that he was there and he saw everybody. And I said, "Where were you?" He said, "I was in the ceiling." He said, "I was looking down." No cap. Go look at near-death experiences of people who got out of their body when they was in the hospital. First thing they gonna tell you, they was in the ceiling. They came out their body and they was looking down. And that's what he was doing. So this is real, y'all. It's nothing to be afraid of. Embrace it, because everybody got to take this path. So now we're going to talk about the lower level negative entities that when they pass, people who serial killers, murderers, what's that word for greedy people? Misers, people who took advantage of people on the third dimensional realm. We talking about your Charles Mansons, your politicians who know that they ain't doing right, your baby rapers, all this kind of stuff. All right. So let's go into that. The lower class of earthbound souls belong to an entirely different category from those just mentioned. The lower class is composed of souls of very low degree of spiritual development, those in which animality is predominant and brutish materiality, a miser, the characteristics of emotional attribute. That's their characteristics, brutish materiality. Get the bag, get the bag. I don't care. I don't care who I mess over. I'm finna get the bag, okay? I don't care if I lie. Tell them anything. Write anything in that contract. Make them sign it. Don't do. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. These are brutish, materialistic people, okay? Just like you got some up here that gets on these social medias acting like they teaching you something and they know they leaving something out or they adding stuff to it. It's just like the people who set up the whole thing of religion. You know, Catholic Bible got 72 books, the regular Bible got 66, and there's so many other books in the Smithsonian that they've taken from other cultures, Dead Sea Scrolls. You can't get into something where you don't know the whole story. All right. I'm getting off, but let me get back on this. All right. So these earthbound souls have really, they're very underdeveloped. Okay. It says these souls are considered as earthbound by reason of the fact that the attraction of the material earth so overbalances the urge of the upward attraction that the latter is more than neutralized, and the soul lives on a plane as near the material plane as is possible to it. In fact, the lower planes of the astral inhabited by this class of souls is so little removed from the material plane that it may be spoken of as almost a transition stage between the material and the astral plane, a blending of the two. It is as if a thin veil were placed between this plane and the scenes of a material life. A tantalizingly thin veil it is to these low souls. So they so close to us, y'all. It's like a thin, like this piece of paper, real thin veil between that world and ours. Okay? A blending of the two. It is as if a very thin veil were placed between this plane and the scenes of material life. A tantalizingly thin veil it is to these low souls, so that while these souls may not actually participate in the earthly affairs, they may yet be dimly conscious of them. So we always feeling like we lose the dead, but the dead don't lose us. Please know this. Enemies, friends, loved ones alike, they don't lose us. We don't see them anymore. They going under the chains of darkness now because they don't have the third dimensional body. Okay. Says these low earthbound souls, as a rule, confine their earth visitations and brooding to the actual scenes which have attracted them in earth life. And these souls take a fiendish delight in trying to influence those of their own kind that are still in the flesh, when in a muddled condition, urging them to fresh infamies and often to actual crimes. Y'all hear that? Think about all the people that die in jail and, they get the chair or something like that. Fallen. See that movie Fallen with Denzel Washington. I love to drop names for movies to help you to understand when criminals are prosecuted and put to death, and they're of the lower level serial killers, right? Think of the worst that you could think of, and they get put to death and they get out of their body. Well, guess what? They can't rise no higher because they never did the work. They're materialistic, they brutish. And so what they do is they hang around people who already got that kind of mentality, right? That might just be stealing little stuff here and there, and they'll put in their head a grand scheme to rob a bank, do something crazy. Yeah, do it, do it, do it. See the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze. All right. Says here, in some extreme cases, these low souls have been known actually to seek their own discarded astral shell, or even that of another kind, or either that of another of their kind, and by a great effort cause it to materialize for a short time in objective form as a ghost. Now, I didn't read the chapters to y'all on the astral shell, but what happens is, just like you shed this physical body when you pass, you live in the astral realm for a while, then you shed that body, and it becomes a shell floating around on that seventh level, the seventh vibration, which is the coarser lower vibration, right? So and they will vivify. Remember prana? I was talking about the prana. So what they'll do, these people who have passed, if they can't get their shell, they'll go try to find another one and come back looking like somebody else. And then you have a seance or something, or having a psychic medium reading for you, and this being that's there look like your loved one, but it ain't them. Okay, go watch The Conjuring. Go watch all them little scary movies that show you stuff like that. Ouija board, you know what I'm saying? Ouija or whatever. How these spirits come and people think, oh, that's my mother, or that's my cousin, or whoever died, my boyfriend. But then this thing behind the eyes of it is something else, right? So this is what this is talking about. It says here, the nature of these entities changes but little by their transition to the astral, meaning whatever nature, like I just said, they had before they passed, they got the same nature. And they take the same delight in roughhouse performances, practical jokes, etc., as in their days in the flesh. So if you had an uncle, or anybody that that was a jokester, they still gonna be that when they get out their body. They not gonna go and be, oh, I'm holier than now. I'm holy than thou now. I'm ready to raise up. No, 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 sir. Just like these preachers in these churches that's touching little boys' bottoms. They gonna still be sick like that when they pass over, right? So they'll be stuck here. They'll be stuck here. And a lot of people that are participating in religious ceremonies like that, going to church, hollering, screaming, falling over, speaking in other languages, those spirits, those disembodied souls are there. They're there. Artificial elementals. That's another name for them. They there and they want to feel it. They want to be in the midst of it. Okay? Many instances of ghostly appearances, the throwing about of physical objects, etc., have been due to this class of disembodied earthbound souls, the violent ones. You see the movies where they throwing stuff across, they busting windows, they busting. Yeah, these are the ones that are angry. These are the ones that, have that way about them. They're negative anyway. It says here, they always may be dismissed and caused to disappear by the person in the flesh showing them, that he understands their real nature and bidding them be gone. So if they come and appear before you, you can, bid them to leave. A bold front and authoritative command, coupled with words showing that their pretenses are seen through, will always rout these creatures and send them back where they belong, crestfallen and abashed. You don't be afraid. That's the last thing you want to do. They feed off of that. Okay? You let them know. Leave here. You got to leave here. Because there's a lot of people that move in old homes and the homes are haunted. It's true. Watch the ghosts. Why do you think they got Ghostbusters? And then you got these other people here on YouTube that do that. They go and they have all these sensitive instruments to see if the temperature drops and all this kind of stuff, because it's a real phenomenon. It's real. Another favorite amusement of a certain class of this kind of low disembodied souls is that of appearing in astral form by taking advantage of an astral shell in spiritualistic seances or other gatherings in which the psychic conditions are so sufficiently strong and favorable as to add to the materialization. Like I just said, they show up at seances. In such cases, these creatures often impudently strive to impersonate other souls. Okay, so they'll find the shell of somebody who done moved on to another level. Y'all, this here. They'll find the disembodied or the disengaged shell of another person who's graduated to another level of the astral plane, and they will vivify it. They will put their angry energy in it. Right? Says here, and such. It says here, either. In such cases, these creatures often impudently strive to impersonate other souls, either of some friend or relative, of someone present, or else of some historical character. Anyone who has ever attended spiritualistic seances and seen George Washington or Julius Caesar appear and converse in the tone and words of the Bowery or Whitechapel will readily understand the reason thereof. A knowledge of this fact will serve to throw light on many perplexing phases of psychic phenomena. So, in other words, I don't get into seances and all that because I already know what it's about, right? Anybody who gets involved in that, those people who are of good energy and had good, were of a finer astral quality, they move on. They don't hang around here. So people who are going to seances and dealing with Ouija boards and all that, and you got energies moving your hand around the board, that's something that's stuck here. That's an earthbound spirit. And that's something you don't want to play with. Okay? Because they'll attach to you and start wreaking all kind of havoc in your life. You don't want to play with that. So don't be doing those seances, playing with Ouija boards and spirit cards. Another movie, Talk to the Hand. Check out that movie. Talk to the Hand. Came out a few years ago. Talk to the Hand. All right. So it says here, these lower class souls, however, spend but a short term on the astral plane and very soon pass on to reincarnation in surroundings corresponding with their natures and to which they are attracted by spiritual laws. The laws of attraction are even stronger on the astral plane than they are here on the physical. You can't go where you don't belong over there. All right. And what I've learned is if you are of a higher spiritual nature and say your loved one dies and they never develop themselves, you can come down to help them, but they can't come up where you at because they haven't developed themselves to get up there yet. But they can come down and minister to you. Y'all remember that scripture in the Bible where Lazarus was like, just give me some water, put some water on my tongue, right? And the person could cross over and do, but he couldn't come over, right? So for me, I know I may have to go down, and help some of my loved ones when that time comes. It's always one, I wouldn't say savior, that's a pretty strong word, but one in a family that have their eyes on, they know what's going on, they study and they putting in their work so they can come back and help their people. I happen to be that one in my family and I know that. All right. Says here, their whole attraction being toward the physical and the material. There is nothing to hold them on the astral plane, and their abode there is a very brief duration in the majority of cases. Okay. So let's start back with, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to read this because I want you to understand what happens with these lower astral beings. They come back quicker because they can't stay on the astral plane. They too filthy, for lack of better words, too undeveloped. They need to be here in the physical because they're not ready. Says here, these lower class souls, however, spend but a short time on the astral plane and very soon pass on to reincarnation in surroundings corresponding with their nature and to which they are attracted by spiritual laws. Y'all get that? Their whole attraction being toward the physical and the material. There is nothing to hold them on the astral plane, and their abode there is a very brief duration in the majority of cases. And yet, even in the very worst and most brutal person, there is always a little bit of good and a spark of spiritual glow which brightens a little during each visit to the astral plane. And in the course of time, this little spark is sufficiently kindled to manifest a tiny blaze which heats the way of the poor soul and illumines the road toward higher things. So there's always hope, no matter who. You can always come back and be better. You may be on that lower astral, but there's some good in there. There's a little bit in there. And it grows each time they die, each time they come back to the astral plane and reincarnate, that it starts to grow. That flame grows until a heat sparks out, and then it gets better and better and better, right? So there's no such thing as a hell where you burn eternally. That's the craziest crap ever, y'all. Don't ever buy into that. Don't believe that. This creation, the source is not that cruel to say, oh, I'm going to burn you for eternity because you're a human who made a mistake. No, you just got to bump your head and bump your head and bump your head. That means come back, come back, come back. Reincarnate till you get tired and say, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to do it, right? So that even these poor entities, there is at least a certain degree of hope and promise. But the majority are degenerated and fallen souls, descended from a once higher state, who, if they fail to profit by the pains of the material life and are apt to tend and but the majority are degenerated and fallen souls, descended from a once higher state, who, if they fail to profit by the pains of the material life, are apt to tend still further downward until kind nature wipes them out as independent entities and resolves them back to their original spiritual elements. Wow. So some can be so evil that they just get kicked out of the whole human thing and become just an entity. Well, didn't the scripture or didn't the Holy Bible tell you about Shaitan and how he convinced these other angels or whatever you want to call them to follow him and come down here and just get cast out of the God family? It happens with humans too. If you are just so deplorably depraved and evil, why should you keep getting chances? Now you got to get cut off. So there is, but you just an entity for the bad side, right? For the negative. So it says here, there are subplanes of the astral so low and degraded that we hesitate to mention them. That's what your hell is going to be. Them lower subplane. So remember I told you we got several astral planes, and every plane has several sub levels, right? The sub levels of the seventh plane, that's your hell. But it's a state of condition. And that state of condition can be whatever you create in your mind. So if you've been trained to think it's going to be a lake of fire, guess what? It will be there. It'll be there. So just change your mind and change your activities. Change the things that you're doing. Detach. Love thy neighbor as thyself. You ain't got to go there. You put yourself there. All right? Says here, they are inhabited by the very lowest and most degraded and degenerate souls which are on the sure descent of annihilation, being unfit to serve as carriers of the sacred plane. Of the details of these subplanes, we shall not speak at this place, in this right now. Enough to quote the words of two distinguished occultists, one of a former age and one of today. The old sage said of these subplanes, what manner of place is this I see? It hath no water, it hath no air, it bath no light, it hath no foundation. It is unfathomably deep, and it has it is as black as the blackest night. The latter-day investigator said of this lower subplane, Most students find the investigation of this section an extremely unpleasant task, for there appears to be a sense of density and gross materiality about it, which is indescribably loathsome to the liberated astral body, causing the sense of pushing its way through some black viscous fluid, while the inhabitants and influences there are usually undesirable. So, see, there is a place on the lower seventh astral subplane that's like the movies. Watch the movie Saw or Pinhead. It's Pinhead, where all this weird, crazy. There's a place like that, y'all. But that's a place for a person who's totally, grossly materialistic, don't have what you call a conscience. All right. They get to the point where they get pushed to the outer realms, because the seventh level is right here with us. So you're talking about going beneath that. That is for a terrible person, a horrific person. It should be scared. It should scarcely be necessary. It should scarcely be necessary to warn persons not to dabble in psychic phenomena of a material character, which brings them more or less into contact with these lower planes of the astral. In other words, don't be doing them seances and calling up spirits and all of that, because that's going to be them. They're going to come up. They might look like they're angel of light, but they're not. But nevertheless, we do wish to set forth this warning in this place, just as we have elsewhere in our other works. For there is always the temptation and fascination of the unknown for many persons, usually those who are not familiar with the phenomena of the astral plane. Such persons, like fools, rush in where angels fear to tread, and attract to themselves all sorts of undesirable astral entities and conditions. Our general advice on this subject is keep the mind fixed on the higher truths of the spirit and the higher life of the soul, and turn the face resolutely away from the lower forms of psychic phenomena. In fact, don't seek phenomena at all, but seek ever the truth, which, when known, makes all things clear. Seek ever the sunshine of spirit and avoid the baleful glare of the psychic moon. There. So now y'all got an understanding of earthbound souls and what happens. People call them, they're earthbound souls, aka ghosts, elemental entities, lower elemental entities. So you understand that. So with all that being said, and we 37 minutes in, make sure when you make your transition, wherever it is, because you don't know. Some people die by accident. Do you know too? The way you die makes a difference too. The part of the body that you come out of, that your orb comes out of, tells what level you on. It's so much to this, y'all. This is the education that we really need. But just make sure that no matter what state you find yourself in, be ye content and always better yourself, because your astral body is affected by what you do physically, what you eat, what you drink. I ain't gonna keep going through that. All right. How you think, how you feel, the thought forms that you create. You got these, they gotta go somewhere. So, with that being said, y'all have an understanding of earthbound spirits, how huntings take place, what's at those seances, okay? When people drawing them six-pointed things and they calling on spirit, you know what it is. Because beings of a higher caliber, of a more evolved, who did the work, they ain't hanging around here. They going on somewhere to the next level. They moving up and up and up and up. Only the negative ones hang around here. Now remember, when you first pass through or pass out into the astral realm, you got 30 days. You got 30 days to visit, your loved ones, see them. They may come to you in your dreams after they pass and stuff like that. But after that 30 days, they need to move on. Ain't no hanging around here. All right. If they continue to hang around and look for negative situations to be a part of and things like that, they only gonna go down lower, lower, and lower. So you don't want to involve yourself in any psychic phenomenon. None of that. No Ouija board playing. All right? None of that. Tarot, on the other hand, if you're asking your higher self, what should I do? You might do a 3-card layout. This is the situation. This is how you should handle it. This is the outcome. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't cut off the good ones, because there are some good um spirit beings like that watch over you. Okay, you just have to know the difference. This is why you got to do the work. But you can't just go to no party like that movie Talk to the Hand and get involved in all that kind of stuff. You mess yourself up, wind up leaving here in a crazy way. All right, and being stuck because you weren't ready yet. So stay ready, and you don't have to get ready. All right. Thank y'all for joining me for this reading, and I'll be back with the next one. All right. Take it easy. Peace out.